How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be providing an update to the dealers and other staff that you can hire for your hideouts. And so real quick, one thing that you guys might notice that I just want to point out is that right now you can see in the upper left that the version is 1.0.4. Some earlier footage that I recorded was in 1.0.3. And the reason for this is that I just recorded some of the interactions back then, but nothing actually changed between 103 and 104, so don't worry too much about that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So reasons that we might want to use dealers are very simple. First and foremost, it helps us automate our production and selling of any of our products. And this is great because, as you can see in the bottom right now, some of the dealers that I have already earned me $290,000 that I have not had to go out and sell by myself. So it truly acts as a source of passive income for you, just so long as you have the products and the means of distributing it to them. And another thing that I'll point out is once you start getting established in some of the later game islands, you'll notice that I have tons and tons of clients. Just here in Slav's Bay alone, I have 19 of the 20 clients all asking me to deliver stuff to them. If I had some dealers there, let's say 2 in Slav's Bay, they could at least take on another 12 of those and would really cut down on the amount of sales that I would have to pass up. Because I'm trying to build reputation there, and also you want to keep the money coming in, right? It really hurts you to try and turn these down, especially if you're a solo player. So a lot of the time, I find myself just scheduling it for the next day, I'll produce my things, and then I'll go and I'll make the deliveries myself. But you can see the benefit of having multiple dealers in an area because they can really help you tackle the workload. And actually, this is perfect. One of the special orders came in. The only thing that I'll say is special orders you may still have to take on yourself. So one of the first things that I mentioned in the dealers video for the demo is that you'll get your first dealer after talking to Lonzo. You'll have a meeting with him, and then shortly after, he'll provide you a dealer. You'll be getting a dealer fairly early on, and Marcus will actually send you a voicemail telling you to go to the bunker. And so once you get to the bunker, you're going to see that a dealer's cabinet is here. This cabinet should already be here, but it won't be marked as a dealer's cabinet, or it just won't be available for you to use right off the bat. But in addition to the dealer's cabinet, you'll also see the DIY table is here. This, I believe, you can use at the very start of the game. The first dealer that you guys will most likely get is this guy Ruben, and you can just go ahead and you can set him as the dealer for the small island. Marcus or Eddie, whoever your narrator is, will make a point of saying this, and that this guy can actually help you distribute to the small island so you don't have to keep jackassing your way over here. And one of the first things that you'll notice here is that I have 6 of 6 clients assigned to him. Now the way to assign a client, I'll just remove one right here and show you, is that you just hit this assign worker to slot, and then it will pop up all the other clients that I have on the island. So you can see I just removed Susanna, and now she's here again. I can go ahead and I can add her, and she's back on the client list. So now Ruben will be pushing product to her and the other clients. Another thing you'll notice is that I still have access to be able to assign more workers or more clients to this worker. And so if I do that, you'll now immediately see that I have 7 out of 6 clients and that the sales speed is decreased by 12% due to too many minions, meaning too many clients. So if I really wanted to automate the entire small island, I could assign all 8. We now have a sales speed decrease of 24%. And so you'll see here that sales speed really starts to decrease rapidly, about 12% per extra client that you assign to your dealer. And to make sure that I'm taking advantage of this 20% sales speed increase, I like to make sure that I don't assign my dealers too many clients. One other thing that I'll point out is if you don't over-assign your dealers, you will still be getting messages from other clients on that island. So small island, for example, this guy Roberto is still wanting me to come and deliver him stuff. This is because my dealer is not taking care of him. So just be warned, you will still get messages. And honestly, my reputation is so good there and my dealer helps keep the demand up that honestly, I usually just decline these and I go about my day. If that gets too annoying for you, you can consider trying to hire another dealer. Although the small island, I haven't found place to assign a second one, or you can just go ahead and decline it if it's not too big of a deal for you. Now let's go ahead and talk about that sales speed increase. If we go over to where Ruben is at, we'll see that it says manage worker spot. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that, and we can see here that Ruben is actually placed right here. Now I'll go ahead and I'll remove him real quick, and it will say that he's unassigned from the distributor. Don't worry about that for now. So now that Ruben is gone, you're probably wondering, well, how do we know where a worker spot is? Well, there's 2 ways. The first way is using the EnviroSense, which by default is your middle mouse button. So if we go ahead and we use the EnviroSense, you'll see here that usually there is something that shows kind of like a little group icon. This is actually where you can assign a worker. Another visual indicator is typically if you look up and you search around, you'll see some shoes. They'll most likely always be above you. Sometimes they'll be on telephone wires, or in this case, it'll be like a little pole. So what you can go ahead and do is you can just hold space. We'll go to assign worker. It will say that the dealer needs to be placed on a terrain spot. So we're going to go ahead and we'll reassign Ruben. And there we go. Now that he is assigned, he's planted. He now has that 20% sales speed increase again. And if you look around, they like to move sometimes. So he used to be up there. Now he's over here. Next time we come back to the small island, he'll probably be somewhere else, just around this general proximity. Some more examples of worker spots are right here on the archipelago where I have Gabriella. We look up, we'll see the shoes. Another one is here by the church where we have Victor. We look up, there's some more shoes. And another one here outside the mechanic. Also at the archipelago, let's use that EnviroSense. Here's another worker spot. Let's look around and, oh look, some shoes. And so as you saw, there's plenty of spots around, you just have to look for them. In the case that there's not shoes, just use your EnviroSense and you really should have no problem finding any worker spots in any of the areas that you want to sell. Now as for additional dealer cabinets outside of the bunker and in other hideouts on other islands, a big change is you no longer have to create them. In the demo, we had to gather a whole bunch of different parts, go over to the DIY table, and create a dealer's cabinet. Now, as long as you're in a hideout, all you have to do is hold space to open your furniture mode. And over here in the special equipment, you'll see all of the workstations that staff that you can hire can use. So for example, we'll have our dealer's cabinet over here, a lab technician table, and a distributor's desk, and we'll get back to this later. You'll notice that they also have an infinite symbol, so you can buy as many of these as you have wealth. And this is really good because now you're not limited to how many dealers you can have on an island, and this really allows you to scale up as quickly as you want. And again, it's going to be primarily determined on the amount of wealth that you have. So as long as you could afford to buy a dealer's cabinet, you could have more dealers. And to show you what that looks like, I have another dealer's cabinet. You could place it down and then you could just hit F to assign an employee. Again, you'll just come over here and you'll choose from any of the associates that you have. Currently, I have a lot of people that are not assigned to anything. And you may be wondering where I got all these people. Some quick notes I can tell you is make sure that you're looking at notice boards in towns. Get your reputation up because you can also get them just by getting your rep up. And be sure to come over to your phone and schedule meetings with the various influencers as they can also give you employees. The next thing we'll talk about is how to actually provide your dealers with product to push to the clients. And so before we get into distributors, this is where dead drops come into play. Now, if you remember from the first game, dead drops typically take the shape of barrels or tires or anything like that. For the most part, it's still the same here in DDS2, but we have a very easy way of determining what exactly is a dead drop, and that again is using the EnviroSense. So what I'll do is I'll just come over to the general area that Ruben is in, and I'll go ahead and I'll middle mouse button. We'll EnviroSense, and we'll notice that a question mark appeared here on this old sofa. You'll see that it says drop package. What I can go ahead and do is drop in whatever product I want to provide them with. Now we'll say drop the dope here. Dope is just a generic term. I wanted to clarify this as I had a question in another video. Really, it just means to drop in whatever product you want to provide the dealer with. I'm not going to do that with Ruben. Some dead drops are very inconspicuous, like this air conditioner, for example. You can see also acts as a dead drop. Just using the EnviroSense in general is going to help you determine exactly where you can drop packages. And so I actually wanted to drop off some product to my two dealers here in Caleon, so I could just go ahead, I'll middle mouse button, EnviroSense pops up here. This old wardrobe was a dead drop. I'm going to be giving 20 grams of this cannabis and 40 grams of this amphetamine. You'll see I have 1 times of each. The next thing you have to do is click on the dealer that you actually want to give it to. So in this case, I'll give it to Patricia, and then I'll just hit confirm. If we open up the wardrobe, you'll see now that it has a timer. At the moment, it's 2:52. It typically is a 3-minute timer, so she'll come and pick this up. And you don't have to look too hard. You'll get a very good idea very quickly as to what a dead drop is. So I can only assume that that over there is a dead drop, but this sofa also is 100% a dead drop. And you can even just go up to it without EnviroSensing, and it will tell you drop package. And that's how you know. So we'll do the same for Jacob. We'll give him the products. We'll click his name, confirm, and he'll come and pick that up also in 3 minutes. And so that's how you provide product to the dealers. And if you'll notice in the bottom right next to the money, you'll see some alert symbols next to the dealers that we have. With Ruben, it says no more product, which makes sense because we gave him nothing. And also still keep in mind that notification we had about him getting removed from the distributors list. Jacob and Patricia's inventory has not updated yet, and so right now is a really good time to point out that if a dealer has any less than 30 grams of any product, this warning will appear. So even if Jacob, let's say, had 100 grams of this cannabis indica and he had 29 grams of amphetamine, it will still pop up showing that he's low on a product. And here, to further prove this test, what I'm going to do is I have to actually resupply some of my dealers over on Caleon. So what I'm going to do is give all 5 of my dealers 30 extra grams of the amphetamine. And this is actually perfect because we can see that my 2 on Caleon currently have no product. Then if we look at Gabriella and Victor over here on the archipelago, their warnings should completely go away because they already have 60 in cannabis, and it's going to push them over that 30-gram threshold for the amphetamine once I give it to them. But with Ruben, it's a perfect example because he already has 62 in the cannabis. I'm going to be giving him the 30. So once it dips below that 30, which should be pretty quickly, we'll see his warning pop right back up. So here we go for Gabriella and Victor. I'm going to give them each 30 more amp. So one for Gabriella right here. Another one for Victor. All right, another 30 here for Ruben. Now, all of these warnings, of course, we're going to have to wait to see them appear and disappear, as I think one of them just did. Yep. So you do have to wait, of course, for the dealer to come and pick up the product before the warning disappears. And so there you go. We'll see that our 2 dealers on the archipelago now have disappeared because their threshold for both the products that we have are over 30 grams. So we have about 10 seconds before Ruben will come and pick up the product from the sofa. And there you go. As you can see, he picked it up and his warning has now gone away. While we're here, we could just go over and manage his spot and just kind of look at what he has. So if you're in the location and you want to look at it manually and you see any of the product is in red, that basically means that a warning is inbound. Because it is at that 30, the warning did not pop up, but once it gets down to, let's say, 29, it is going to show. Okay, and we're going to give our 60 cannabis and one of our 30 amphetamine packages here to Jacob. We'll come over here. It's a little further from Patricia, but we're going to do the same for her. 60 and 30 for her. All right, so Jacob should have picked up the packages now. We see that he has them. And right there, his warning went away, which means now shortly Patricia should get hers as well. And yeah, if we go into our phone, we'll see that we have no more warnings. So everyone has at least 30. And if you're not local to your dealer, you could always just go back to your hideout where the dealer cabinet is. You can go over their name and you'll see that she has 60 of the cannabis and 30 of the amp. That red warning is there again, just to let you know that she is getting a little low on that product. And so we'll go to sleep for the night, and our dealers will soon get to work. And so like I said again, they can start as early as 8 a.m. The earliest that I have on record so far is 8:24 a.m. making a sale. And, well, now it's 8:13. So I think that's enough to confirm that they can start selling as early as 8 a.m. So right when you wake up, it really is one of the most efficient ways to push product, because then you don't have to wait for clients at 9 a.m. Okay, and we'll see here that Patricia got really busy and she actually pushed a whole bunch of amp, about 14. Now her warning came right back up. And so real quick, I'll touch base on delivering money. Regardless if you have a small safe like I have here, or if you have a larger one in another hideout later down the line, the main thing to note is that you need to have a safe of some kind, and also the amount of money that you're going to be receiving in that safe will have to be able to fill these slots. So if you're unaware, small amounts of cash, or cash parentheses small, it's the smallest denominations of local currency, and it will stack up to 200,000. But what that means is that I can only have 200,000 in small bills in each of these slots. Or in other words, I can only collect 400,000 from my dealers that are here on this part of the island. Because my hideout is here in the archipelago, and I have 2 dealers here in the archipelago, that also corresponds to the lockers that I have in my hideout. This means that I can only have the dealers in the archipelago, these 2 guys, deliver the money to this particular hideout. So you have to think about it like that. The dealers on the island almost create a web to the safe that they are delivering to. And conversely, the hideout where your safe is in should also contain your dealer cabinets. The dealer cabinets send the signal to the dealers, which then tells the dealers to come back to the hideout and put the money in the safe. With that being said, we'll go to our dealer cabinets. I'll go here, I'll do deliver the money. He'll deliver the cash shortly. Same with Gabriella, deliver the money, and she'll deliver the cash shortly. Now they won't be coming physically through the door, but they will actually drop the money off in the small safe. Don't panic if you open it up right away and you don't see it. It does take some time. As to how much time it takes, that we are not told. But just be patient, it's really not that long, and you'll get a notification when they drop the cash off. Okay, there we go. So Victor has dropped off the money, and Gabriella was shortly to follow. Now you can go over to your safe, and if we open it up, we'll see that collectively they delivered me 87,822. And because this did not surpass 200,000, it didn't go into the second slot. That should make enough sense. You can claim that. And as further proof, when I stacked it, the money I already had in my pocket went up to 200,000. My remainder went into another slot. And now you may be looking at that and be a little confused that I still have a balance. Well, remember, I have other dealers in other islands, and I only claim money from these 2. Another thing that I would like to address comes from another question that I had, asking how do we know exactly how much the dealers want? So when you are providing the product yourself and you're delivering it to dead drops, how do you know exactly how much your dealers want? Now I'll give you two answers, a much more brief answer and maybe a little more convoluted one. The short answer is give them as much as you possibly can. As much as you can produce, just go ahead and deliver it to them if it's in your means to do so. And I'll even expand on that, just saying that once you do get up to distributors, which we'll be talking about soon, you won't even have to worry about going to dead drops and doing all of that. So really a general rule of thumb I would say is produce as much as you possibly can, because your dealers are going to keep pushing that out for you and generating all that passive income. Now, if you want the more convoluted answer, you can stick around, or you can jump to this timestamp to skip all this. But I went ahead and I did some sales data tracking a while back, only using Rubin on the small island. I did this a few days ago, but I decided to keep it just to keep record of everything that was happening. One thing that I want to point out is that on Monday, I pretty much did it every 2 hours and then started to get a little sloppy with it. The rest of the days I went way more in detail. But if we go ahead and we look here, we'll see that on Monday I started at around 11:44. Now I had sales coming in before then, but we can see that I started with a total of 78 amp, 115 weed. 2 hours later, I still had that 78 amp total and then down to 109 weed. And we can continue going down and just comparing to see exactly what was sold and when it was sold. And so I know this does seem fairly random, and truth be told, I think it is. For example, our weed went down by 6 right here. Here at 344, our amp went down by another 4. And so the orders and the quantities were fairly random, but the numbers are something that we can expect when you compare that to certain sales that you get on your phone. So we'll scroll down, we'll see that nothing was sold past 8 o'clock. That doesn't mean that that's when it ends, just for this day, that was my last sale. We can see I went from 91 to 68 of the amphetamine and sold a total of 23. As for the weed, I sold a total of 21. I'll try and go through this quick, I'm not going to go line by line, but if we slowly scroll down here, you'll see we started with a total of around 68 amp, 95 weed, and we ended the day with a total of 38 amp and 70 weed, so just around 30 and 25 of each product. And so Wednesday, same thing, started with our 38 amp now and 68 weed. That was the first sale of the day, so we sold 2 weed from the day before. And we ended the night at 1937 with a total of 13 amp and 53 weed. So at the end of the day, we ended up selling 25 of the amp and only 15 of the weed. By Thursday, you could see that all of the amp was gone. And then by the end of Friday, 11 weed was left. At this point, I started to see enough of a pattern, so on Saturday I got fairly lazy and I didn't track anything, but that's when the weed fully depleted. And so I just want to come over to the boss's desk real quick and show the demand on the small island. The marijuana had 120, whereas the amp had 90. And this is where I start to think that the demand doesn't actually correlate with how much product we're going to be asked to provide. Because on average, our weed seemed to go down about 15 to 20 units per day, whereas our amp went down about 30 per day. And this would make sense starting that test off on Monday because our amp was fully depleted on Thursday. Really, it should have meant that our weed was depleted on Friday, but again, the game is a little random with the quantities of each order. And so at least for my testing on the small island alone, I can say that 30 units per day for the amp and 15 to 20 units per day for the weed. By no means is the theory or the data perfect, but if you want a rough estimate, and let's say you don't have your production fully up and running, and you can only produce a finite amount, those are the numbers that I would try and stick to, just plan around that. But again, like I said, just go ahead and give your dealers as much as you possibly can. It's going to help you out in the long run. And so now is a good time as any to talk about lab technicians real quick. So obviously, as I showed you earlier, I have a very large set of orders tomorrow that I have to fulfill. Now within my hideout, I have a small production chain just of about 4 cookers and 4 of the fermentation vats. And that's pretty good all things considered. You'll see that I have a crafting query of 20 max for the cookers as well as 20 max for the vats. But with the fact that I have 2 special orders on top of all the other orders that I have to fulfill, now let's say that I had other things to attend to tonight and I couldn't be in here just refreshing the queues of 20 for each of these and I had enough raw material to keep going, well, this is where I might want to use a lab technician. So if you place down a lab technician's table, which again you could just buy here for 50 grand, we're going to go ahead, hit F on it, it will say unassigned, and what we'll do, we'll assign any random worker. Again, it could be anyone, no one really has a specialization. So let's just put this guy. Now one of the first things you'll notice is that the employee has a $30,000 a day fee. Now one critical thing to note here is that it will charge that 30K fee regardless of what time you take him out and for how long he's used. So if I remove him right now, I will still be charged that 30 grand in the morning, usually around the same time that your production bills get billed to you. So I could have him literally work for a minute for me, decide, oh, actually I don't need a lab technician. It doesn't matter, he's still going to be taking that 30 grand. You may be asking, now what does he do? Well, if we go back to our cookers, we can now see that our crafting query has actually doubled. And so the lab technician basically doubles the query of everything that you can have. So my fermentation vats are 40. We look at the stove, the cookies, I can make 80 of them if I wanted. Even the dryers now have a crafting query of 200. So on these large production nights, if you're not going to be in base or you just want a larger query and just don't really want to babysit it too much, then go ahead and get yourself a lab technician for the night. I don't always use one. They are pretty costly, and so this is going to have to be a calculation that you do for yourself and determine whether or not it's worth it. But since I do have a big day coming up tomorrow, assuming I have enough raw products, I do want to try and get as much as I can. And now finally, I want to talk about distributors. Now, distributors are the second part of automating your production chain and sales to clients, and they are very, very powerful and should not be overlooked. So to unlock the desk, after you complete most of the main story quest here in the archipelago, you're going to be directed to go over to Calion. From there, you'll continue doing the main story quest and might push you up into the jungle a little bit, but then it will have you come back in Calion. You'll meet another influencer named Pedro, continue doing the main story quest, and eventually it's going to push you into this area called Slav's Bay. Now in Slav's Bay, you're going to meet another influencer named Kira, and she might send you on a quest or two as well, so just go ahead and complete that. And afterwards, it's around this time that Marcus will actually send you a voicemail letting you know that he thinks you should probably try and find a distributor. One of the next quests that you'll get will involve you actually finding a distributor, and so the quickest way that you can do that is just by going up to a notice board. You can go to a few towns, but in my case, I either got lucky or this is just how it's intended, but the first notice board that I went up to in Slav's Bay was actually a distributor. The game has you do all that, but in reality, you don't actually have to hire that person as your distributor. It more or less just progresses the main story quest forward, but at that point, you should now have access to this journal entry for distributors, and you'll also be able to purchase a distributor's desk. Now, similar to the dealer's cabinet and the lab technician's table, you can go ahead and hold space, and you'll see here that a distributor's desk is 80 grand. Now that might seem a little steep, but trust me, it is well worth it. So once you get the distributor's desk, you can actually go to manage, and you'll see that I have someone in here right now. Now it might just be a graphical glitch, but the distributor doesn't actually show up in the chair for whatever reason. But fear not, as long as you see that a name is there, and if you go into the desk and you see that someone is assigned, you're a-okay, it's totally fine. Now you see currently that I actually have 2 dealers assigned. I have Victor and I have Gabriella, who from earlier examples you may have seen are actually my 2 dealers here on the archipelago. Now if you remember, we had that notification after we removed Ruben from the distributors list that he was in fact removed. And real quick before I go ahead and add him back on, I want to draw your attention to his notification up here stating that he has no more product. And similarly, if we compare that to Victor, we'll hover over him and we'll see that he also has a lack of stock. And same here again, Gabriella is also showing that she has no product. At this point you might be wondering, well then why aren't Jacob and Gabriella's notifications popping up here but Ruben's is? And that's because the distributor is actually handling that for us. One of the key takeaways with the distributor is that the drugs are taken on a per client order basis, so it won't actually show that your dealers are stocked up. And again, you can see here that Victor and Gabriella have a lack of stock even in the distributor's menu. So your next question may be, okay, well then how do we actually provide the distributor with product? Well, as long as the distributor's desk is within the hideout, the distributor will actually handle any orders that your dealers are getting from clients, and then they will pull the product that each client wants from your substance storage within the hideout. You can see immediately just how powerful this is because now you don't have to worry about doing any dead drops. You don't have to worry about the 30-gram threshold for any of the products. Just so long as your substance storage within the warehouse that contains this distributor's desk has a product, the distributor will handle everything else for you. Of course, this does also come with an additional 20% sales share, so they'll be taking a fee in addition to your dealers taking a fee, but again, this is highly worth it. Just being able to automate this process makes it so much easier, and it really takes a lot of the workload away from you so that you can focus on doing other things like expanding and pushing to other islands. And so with that, let's go ahead and get Ruben back on the distributors list. So I'll just add him there and then I'll hit confirm. And just like that, almost immediately, his notification has now gone away. And now another thing that you may be wondering is how am I able to assign a dealer who's on another island to this distributor's desk that's on, say, the archipelago? And this again is what makes the distributor's desk so powerful because it doesn't require your dealers and their cabinets to be placed in the same location. Instead, what the distributor's desk does check for is a radius. And so another key takeaway is the dealers that you want to assign must actually be placed in a 500-meter radius around the distributor. So if you see here where we are at our base, our distributor's desk is here. Obviously we're going to get that dealer, and it seems as though our 500-meter radius also contains these two dealers way over here on the archipelago and back on the small island. And this again is great for us because we no longer have to jackass to the small island to give Ruben his stuff. We don't have to go over to him to claim our cash. And the same could be said with Victor over here on the archipelago. Gabriella is close enough, but you know what? We'll take the convenience. And in fact, I had Gabriella up here earlier and the radius still reached her up there, which does make sense. I mean, this probably is still the closest point compared to that and that. And now the only shortcoming with this is there really is no way to determine how far that 500-meter radius is. In fact, even the devs said that you have to play around with it, and that couldn't be closer to the truth. So until they add something that shows maybe a radius of how far your distributor's desk reaches, or I find some other way to actually measure it, you do have to play around with it. But this means that there's a very important decision you have to make when selecting a base, which again, I just want to point out why this cottage here is just so powerful, is that we are able to get all these starting 3 islands, and I basically never have to come back here other than to make sure I have enough product in the substance storage, and of course to claim the cash. And speaking of that, you may be wondering, well, how do I claim the cash? There is no more deliver cash, so are the safes useless? Well, yes and no, but one of the great things about the distributor's desk is that now you get to take the cash from all of the dealers. And if you haven't noticed, you can see the numbers are still going up, so this only further proves the point that yes, it will show they have no stock, but the distributor is taking from the substance storage. Now if I wanted my money from the distributor, all I have to do is hit take cash, and there it is. I got my 309,000. And another thing you'll see here is that these bills are actually in large denominations. Now, if we read here, it says that it takes up less space than the smaller bills. You could even see that here denoted by the weight, like 1,000 grams for 200,000 or 619 grams for 309,000. Now, from all my testing, anytime that you take cash from a distributor, it will always be in the large bills. Your dealers could sell $1 of a product and it would still come into your pocket as a large bill. There's no real reason as to why they do this. My best guess is that at this point the game expects you to start making substantial amounts of money, far more than you can really keep up with just by doing the small denomination bills and stacking 200,000 in every single slot. So really it is more convenient, and I like this change a lot more that you do get these bills in the large denominations. And another great thing again is you'll see that it all just comes in immediately. So I have another 8,000 here, I'll take that. We can look here, and now I have 317,000 in large bills. Now the last limiting factor that you may be considering is, okay, do I have to set up a lab in every single place that I have a distributor's desk? And the answer is absolutely not. If I wanted to throughout the rest of the game, and I probably wouldn't recommend doing this, but I can go ahead and just make this cottage the super uber deluxe production machine, produce every single thing that I wanted here, and then I could just come over to the laboratory tray, I could pack everything up, and I can go to another hideout and just add it into a substance storage. I could have some dealer's cabinets in there, I could put a distributor's desk, and everything will function the same exact way. Now obviously that's going to be up to you, that's your decision. If you do want my suggestion, I would say you should probably have at least a light lab setup in every major portion of a few islands. So for example, over here on the foreshore, I might have something in the jungle, and I do have a hideout right over here. Now obviously again, we're going to have to test out that 500-meter radius, but my hope is that I can actually have another lab, some dealer cabinets, and a distributor's desk. That desk can be connected to my dealers I have over here in Caleon. I do plan on getting some dealers here in Slavs Bay as well, and then that distributor can kind of handle this chunk. And so that's kind of how I would do it. I would just start splitting up the islands in different sections into chunks and playing around with that 500-meter radius as much as you can. And that pretty much sums it up. Now I know this video was a lot longer than the previous dealer's guide that I made, but I wanted to make sure that I included as much detail and I didn't leave anything out. If by chance I did miss something or you guys still have some questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Also stay tuned for some more guides that I have coming out very soon. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.